What does Daniel Dubois need to do next? Yes, he lost to Usyk in devastating fashion, but he's still young and possesses phenomenal talent. Should he change trainers? Does he need to overhaul his training methods? Is his relationship with his father helping or hurting his progress? These are the questions Dubois must answer if he wants to fulfill his potential. At a crossroads in his career, it's time to evaluate everything and decide what changes are necessary to rise again.
So what should Daniel Dubois do next? I have some opinions and I've got some notes with me. Now, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, I think he should keep Don Charles. I think he should keep Don Charles. Why? Why should he keep Don Charles? Well, under Don Charles, he had those 3 fantastic performances. He beat the undefeated Gerald Miller. He beat the undefeated Filip Hrgović, undefeated at the time. And he had the sensational performance against Anthony Joshua. He showed he could solve boxing puzzles. He couldn't solve the Usyk puzzle. Let's be honest, no one solved that puzzle yet. But he did solve the puzzles before, and before he was with Don Charles, he wasn't able to solve the puzzle that Joe Joyce brought with that jab and the movement. So I think keeping Don Charles would be important. However, I do think we need to review the relationship, or I think Daniel Dubois needs to review the relationship with him and his father. It would appear to me that the relationship between him and his father has predominantly been a positive relationship. Daniel Dubois looks up to his father. That's a great thing. I believe before he landed the first knockdown punch, that overhand right in round 1, I think he actually was looking to his father. So his father is his guidance. It's part of his strength. That's a good thing. But there's been a lot of rumours of his father having issues with trainers, and I think they both need to address that. It's very important that Daniel Dubois has a good relationship with his father and has a good relationship with his trainers. I guess the question is, how involved is Daniel Dubois' father in the training camp? Here's a better question. Not only how involved is he, but is his involvement in the training camp positive, or is his involvement a distraction? Or is it a distraction, or can it be seen as negative? It's really important in moving forward that the relationship with Daniel Dubois and Daniel Dubois' father does not impact training camps and trainer relationships. Now, with that being said, I think Daniel Dubois probably has had his confidence impacted with such a defeat. So considering this, it's probably very important that he has a comeback fight to build his confidence. So you don't put him in there with Tyson Fury or put him in there with a top 10 heavyweight. You put him in there with someone that can help you build your confidence. He needs to get the confidence back, confidence in his speed, his power. He needs to get his mojo back, for want of a better word. So I think what they call a tune-up fight would be very important. Also, I would like to see Daniel Dubois to engage in studying his opponents. I don't know if he does or doesn't study his opponents. If he doesn't study his opponent, it's important for him to study his opponents. So typically your trainer will study your opponents, but he needs to be involved in that process. What does your opponent do well? What do they do badly? And how can they exploit that? That's an important part of becoming a great fighter or a greater fighter. Know your enemy. Also, I think he needs to take a deep look at himself and ask himself, honestly, what went wrong in the fight? There's a few elements here. We can clearly see what went wrong in the actual fight, but what went wrong before the fight? Were there issues in the lead up? Clearly, there's been a lot of allegations with regards to the gathering or the party. He needs to assess that. Why did that happen? Was that productive to his performance? Was that detrimental to his performance? So that's what happened before. Also, look at the training camp. Was the training camp optimal? If it wasn't, why wasn't it optimal? How can it be improved? These things need to be looked at. He also needs to review the team, whether it's, everyone from the nutritionist, from the, just everything needs to be looked at. And it's not about firing people, it's about how to improve. That's important. And that's the question to ask. How can you improve the setup? Daniel Dubois has incredible talent and he's young. He can definitely be world champion, potentially be undisputed champion. But things need to improve, things need to change. And there's another element as well. I think, and learn from your enemy. Usyk has drills in his camp to improve his cognition. Daniel Dubois, if he doesn't have that, he needs to have drills in his camp to improve his cognition. Think of it this way. Lennox Lewis, the great Lennox Lewis, one of the greatest British fighters, or one of the greatest fighters of all time, he would play chess. And I believe that chess playing was important because it was almost like a reflective of his style. He was very strategic, he was very tactical. Yes, he was aggressive. Yes, he could, knock opponents out. Look at the Andrew Golota performance, the Donovan Razor Rudder performance. That was a chilling performance. Everyone was scared of Lennox Lewis after that performance. But he also was tactical. He also had that ability to be tactical, and that comes from developing that cognition, developing that problem-solving ability. And I believe in the Lennox Lewis context, that would be partly through training, partly through the guidance of the late great Emmanuel Stewart, but also utilizing chess, because chess is a great way to develop your solution-focused skills. And Usyk, he would play certain games to improve his problem-solving and to improve his cognition. And Daniel Dubois needs to excel at this, because one of the issues that Daniel Dubois has is that when Usyk solved the problem, he was unable to adapt effectively. He did try to adapt, but he didn't adapt effectively. So to me, the talent is there, the speed is there, the power is chilling. Yes, clearly there looks like there could be improvements with regards to his training and getting ready for the fight, but he needs to improve his boxing intelligence. You hear me speak about it all the time, but he needs to improve that. And all of those improvements, they need to be done in the gym. So who does Daniel Dubois fight next, assuming that he continues to fight? Well, there's a few people he can fight. First, I think he should do maybe 1 or 2 tune-up fights to build his confidence, but also get the public to remember how brutal he can be. I remember when he fought, I think it was Nathan Gorman, and he had a absolutely sensational performance. And the public, they were engaged when they saw that performance. So we need a few of those performances, not just for him, but also for the boxing public and for the general public. And there's some interesting fights that could be done. You've got the Joe Joyce rematch. Joe Joyce is coming off a loss, but he's a tough competitor. He has a victory over Daniel Dubois. And if they did rematch, it's quite logical to think that Joe Joyce would probably duplicate the tactics that were successful in the first fight. So this would be a good measuring stick. This would be a good measuring stick to see if Daniel Dubois' boxing intelligence or boxing IQ has increased. We have Martin Bakole. That would be a very dangerous fight. Martin Bakole is being criticized a lot at the moment, but he's a dangerous fighter. He has a lot of great punch creativity. He has good accuracy when he's on form. And against Anderson, you could see he was on it. He's a handful for anyone when he's in shape. Caballero, that's an extremely dangerous fight. Maybe stay away from him at the moment, but Caballero is looking really good. Really, really good. And again, he's a boxer with high boxing intelligence. When he's on, he would be difficult for anyone. You've got the Derek Chisora fight. That would be exciting. That would be exciting. And that would be, I think Derek Chisora would really fancy himself in that fight. And Derek Chisora can have some poor performances, but he can have some great performances. Still to this day, Derek Chisora's performance against Usyk, Derek Chisora's performance against Usyk is one of the best performances. He was creative, he was strong, he had that punch creativity, he brought it all to the table. And I think Derek Chisora would really relish that opportunity. That would be a good fight. I think that fight would be entertaining. Derek Chisora is loved by the British public. We have Andy Ruiz. That's an interesting fight. Daniel Dubois, I think, would be able to dictate with his jab and would be able to steal rounds. But Andy Ruiz has a lot of speed and a lot of power. And if you engage him in close quarters, that can be a difficult fight. To see Andy Ruiz when he's, up there, it's important to look at the Anthony Joshua fight, the first fight, not the second fight, but the first fight, because when he gets put down, that's when he wakes up, and he has some great counter punches in that fight, and really he was a beast that night. But also he fought Joseph Parker, and that was an extremely competitive fight. He was very good in that fight. His performance, I believe, was underrated. And then finally I've put down Deontay Wilder. Now, Deontay Wilder would be an interesting fight because everyone is condemning Deontay Wilder and saying how bad and overrated he is. But at one point, Deontay Wilder's power was seen to be on level with the hardest punchers in the world. He was seen to be as hitting hard as, I guess there's two elite punchers that are seen as like the heaviest punchers of all time. And I would say that's George Foreman and Ernie Shavers. And then obviously you've got people like Mike Tyson, Riddick Bowe, Lennox Lewis, etc. But George Foreman, Ernie Shavers, that's the elite level of punching power. And Deontay Wilder at one point in his quote-unquote prime was seen to punch on that level. And just for that reason, that would be an intriguing fight. I'd definitely tune in to watch that one. But I think it's important that Daniel Dubois makes certain adjustments. The only other variable here is if he leaves Don Charles, which I wouldn't recommend, but if he does leave Don Charles, who does he go to next? He would need a strong trainer, and that trainer would not only need to help Daniel Dubois improve his boxing intelligence and get the best out of him and nurture his style, that trainer would also need to be able to manage the relationship between the father and son, because it's an important relationship, it's a beneficial relationship, but they would need to harness that relationship so that it doesn't become detrimental to Daniel Dubois' performances. Also, it's important to state that Daniel Dubois has done phenomenally well. He was a world champion. He knocked out Anthony Joshua, and he was on a great run. Those 3 fights, he performed immensely well. So if he does call it a day, he's made a load of money, he was a world champion, he's got a lot to be proud of. And I think the boxing public can be quite ruthless. One defeat and you're the worst boxer ever. And the reality is, he's still a world level fighter. And he got beaten by an elite level fighter that some people are calling the greatest of all time. So that's my take on what Daniel Dubois should do.